Here on That Ginger Guy Talks Marvel, not only will I be doing lists on all of my favourite things in the MCU, and anything Marvel related, but I'm also going to review every movie currently at time of recording in the MCU. That's right, all 19 movies are going to be reviewed right here. So let's start with what started the entire universe off. Iron Man is directed by Jon Favreau and of course stars Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and this is where the whole universe started, right here with Tony Stark, the eccentric billionaire, being kidnapped by terrorists, an explosion leaving shrapnel in his heart. He then has a huge epiphany, shuts down Stark Industries and decides to use his money and his Iron Man suits for the better, the greater good. But there is one man who wants to destroy him, gets a hit on him, tries to get him killed, and Tony's entire objective is to get the man who tries to do it. It happens to be his right-hand man, Obadiah Stane. In 2008, yes, we had some comic book movies to keep us going. We had Spider-Man. We unfortunately had Steel, starring Shaquille O'Neal. It is a comic book movie. I know, I'm terribly sorry. And you also had the infamous Dark Knight. But there was no universe movies. There was none that all linked together until this movie took all the risks, did what no other studio was doing, and wow, what a beginning. Sure, Marvel had made some movies before. I mean, I think Eric Bana's got some splaining to do. But even trying to get a universe started in the first place is huge. How do you know back then that millions of people are going to watch every single one of your movies? They're now bringing out like 3 a year, but it was still a huge risk. Even getting Robert Downey Jr. into your movie. The man was... he was an alcoholic, a drug addict. He was a man who was in and out of prison in his youth. Yeah, he'd done child acting and he's done a lot of things. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I really do. A lot of his films back then were really good. But the man is a criminal. Yet they took this risk. Jon Favreau saw that he was Tony Stark in his life. The personality was Tony. And the casting was perfect. This movie for me could not have been cast any better. RDJ is Tony Stark. Troubled childhood, alcoholism, very hard upbringing, it's all there. I can only really compare this to Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. You can only see that person playing this character, hence he's still playing Iron Man to this day. He had like contracts of like, oh, I don't want to do it, then I do, but he's clearly in love with being Iron Man. And I couldn't imagine it without him. Don't go! This movie for me is so perfect because of Jon Favreau's genius. I mean, he put hilarity with some heart-wrenching moments. You had some stuff that's pretty true to reality. This whole terrorist element is it's tough to watch because it happens, unfortunately. But he used this all to create this extremely tense story that is a perfect start to the MCU. You get the introduction of Tony himself being a bit of a douche, and then you get him coming to terms with what he got through by not, still blowing up shit. He's trying to save the Earth. He, at the time of this, is the only one that they all know about. He's a genius, and that's what he has to do. It is the perfect start. It's a perfect beginning to his story, and without it being how it was done, it just wouldn't be the same. You didn't have RDJ, you didn't have all these things going on. It just worked. It's like the perfect symphony. It just worked so well. But I would say, yes, there is 2 villains in this movie. One of them is very annoying, very generic, and very one-dimensional, and the other one is Jeff Bridges. Ironmonger is of course the first villain that we see in the MCU, and to be honest, he's not the worst. But of course we all know who that is, and that can wait for another video. Oh, the Dark World! Of course Jeff Bridges fucking kills it in this movie. It's the dude. Of course he killed it. Obadiah has a good reason to take over from Tony. He wanted Tony dead so he could take over and make the munitions business invincible. He wanted to be the big cheese. His father died, Tony just took it over at 21. Obadiah's pissed. He wants to be in charge. The only way he thinks to get rid of Tony is to kill him. You've made Iron Man, I'll make a fuck off giant Iron Man that I can fit into. It literally makes no sense as to why to make it that big, but that's what he does. He's bigger, he's brasher, he's riding around on a Segway with a cigar in his mouth, and Jeff Bridges kills this role. He's not the worst villain in the MCU, he's actually good. Villains with purpose are good. It's why The Dark Knight worked so well. Yeah, he wants to watch the world burn, but it works, blah, 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 blah. Jeff Bridges is fantastic in this film. Probably one of the best parts about it. If there was a worst part, I would have to say it's Gwyneth Paltrow. Pepper Potts in this movie, for me, is just so blech. So boring, there's nothing to her. Yeah, it picks up in later movies, but this is not the best introduction to her. I could have done without her. With all that being said, guys, this is one of my favourite movies of the MCU. It was perfectly cast. It had inside corruption, it had rebirth, and it had new beginnings. This movie made me excited for what nobody knew about until now, but it made me excited for the next 18 movies. The fact that they even go that far, and the fact that I'm even saying that is fucking crazy, but it really did make me excited for the next ones. I truly love it. I still love it now. I watched it last night. I still love it. It's great. So, rather than rate these movies out of 5 like I do in my normal reviews, I'm actually going to make all 19 in a list of where they all stand in my personal preference. So, Iron Man sits in this list at number 6. So, there it is, guys. Once all of the filming is done, you will then see where all 19 end up on my list. Next on the list is The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton. I cannot wait for that one. Until then, guys, this is your friendly neighbourhood ginger guy saying, Ginge out!